Here's the recap of the first season of Moon Knight. The main character, Stephen Grant, works as a souvenir salesman in a museum and is very interested in Egyptian history. He also suffers from memory lapses and, in his opinion, sleepwalking, so he ties himself to his bed every night. One day, he suddenly wakes up in an unknown place somewhere in Europe, with armed men hunting him down. While running away from them, Stephen ends up at some kind of cult meeting, where the leader, Arthur Harrow, uses an unusual staff to judge people for their actions, both past and future. If a person is in harmony with himself, he survives. If not, he dies instantly. Harrow spots Stephen in the crowd and demands that he give him some kind of scarab. Stephen doesn't understand what he's talking about, but finds a gold amulet in his pocket. When he tries to give the scarab to the cult leader, he passes out and regains consciousness surrounded by dead bodies. Suddenly, a voice speaks to him and orders him to run. During the chase, Stephen passes out several times, and each time it is as if he is being controlled by a trained mercenary who is getting him out of hopeless situations. Eventually, Stephen regains consciousness in his bed at home and thinks it was just a dream, but soon realizes that what happened to him was real. Stephen finds a hiding place in his home where there is a key to some kind of storage facility and a phone. When he turns it on, a woman named Layla contacts him and for some reason calls him Mark. Harrow finds Stephen at work and again demands the return of the scarab, saying that he worships the Egyptian goddess Ammit and then decides to judge Stephen with his staff, but for some reason the scales do not stop and the villain leaves. At night he is attacked by a jackal summoned by Harrow, and Stephen hides in the bathroom. There, his alter ego, Mark Spector, begins to talk to him and persuades him to give up control of his body so that he can save him. He agrees, and Mark kills the jackal by taking the form of the Moon Knight. Stephen wakes up in his bed again and goes to work, where he learns that the jackal was invisible to the cameras. Stephen is then fired from his job for damaging the museum. He remembers the key he found earlier in the hiding place and finds the storage room. There he discovers weapons, documents belonging to Mark Spector, and the scarab itself. After that, his second personality begins to talk to him and informs Stephen that he is the avatar of the Egyptian god Khonshu and can kill evil people whom this god points out to him. Mark demands control of the body, but Stephen refuses and sees Khonshu himself, who is unhappy that the simple-minded Stephen is at the helm. Stephen runs away and is found by Layla, with whom he had spoken earlier on the phone. It turns out that she is Mark's wife, and in the past, they tried to find this very scarab together. Stephen tells her about his split personality, and soon two policemen who are actually working for Harrow burst into his home. They then take him to the cult leader. The man tells Stephen that he used to be the avatar of Khonshu, but stopped believing in him and began to worship Ammit. The scarab is a compass that points to the tomb of the goddess, and his cult wants to free her and cleanse the world of evil by killing everyone who has committed or will commit evil deeds. Stephen notes that this is somehow unfair, since in that case Harrow will kill even babies who have not yet done anything wrong. At this point, Layla appears, and together they try to escape, while Harrow sends another jackal after them. After listening to Khonshu, Stephen manages to summon the Moon Knight suit, even though it looks different from Mark's, and Stephen begins to fight the monster. However, he does not know how to fight, and Mark persuades him to give him control of the body, after which the jackal is defeated. However, during the fight they lose the scarab, which is found by Harrow, who sets off with his cult to search for Ammit's tomb. Mark refuses to give control of the body back to Stephen, and goes to Egypt to find Harrow. However, after some time, he realizes that the cult fanatics would rather die than betray their leader. Khonshu takes desperate measures and creates an eclipse, forcing the other Egyptian gods, who are in the bodies of human avatars, to convene a council. Khonshu informs the council that Harrow intends to resurrect the goddess Ammit, but when they summon the man to testify, he says that Khonshu is lying, referring to his avatar's mental disorder, which is true. The council releases Harrow and informs Khonshu that if he uses his power in such a way that ordinary people find out about it again, he will also be sealed away like the goddess Ammit. Soon, Mark is found by his wife Layla, who says she can help him find the goddess's tomb without the scarab's help. She takes him to the estate of her friend, treasure collector Anton Mogart, where they find a map but have to take it by force. Heading into the desert, Mark gives control of his body to Stephen, as he is knowledgeable about Egyptian mythology and can tell them how to find the tomb. But to do so, they need to know what the night sky looked like 2,000 years ago. The task seems impossible, but Khonshu says he can rewind the night sky to that time on his own. He also says that the other gods will notice this and seal him away, but he is willing to make this sacrifice as long as Mark stops Harrow. Khonshu rewinds the night sky as seen by people across the planet, and the main characters determine the location of the tomb, after which the god is sealed in a stone statue. Stephen and Layla find Amit's tomb, descend into it, and realize that it is a huge labyrinth in which Harrow and his men are already wandering. The main characters have to split up, and Layla is attacked by some kind of monster, which she eventually defeats. Harrow finds her and tells Layla that Mark is responsible for her father's death and has been hiding this from her. After that, she runs away. Meanwhile, Stephen discovers the tomb of Alexander the Great, who turns out to have been Amit's avatar in the past, and finds a statue of the goddess in which she is sealed. Layla appears and demands an explanation from Mark about her father's death. He tells her that in the past he was a mercenary and guarded his expedition, but Mark's partner, out of greed, killed all the archaeologists and mortally wounded Mark. Later, we learn that it was at that moment that the dying Mark met Khonshu, who offered to serve him, and after Mark agreed, healed his fatal wounds. By the way, the Moon Knight's abilities come from a suit that gives him superpowers and heals almost any injury. The main characters hear Harrow's men approaching, and Layla hides behind a column. Mark tries to fight, but since Khonshu is sealed, he cannot summon his suit, and the villain kills him, taking the Amit statue. Suddenly, Mark regains consciousness in a mental hospital, where all the characters he has met throughout the series are its inhabitants, and Harrow is the attending physician. Mark does not believe that this is reality, runs away from the office, and finds a sarcophagus in which he discovers Stephen. Together, they intend to escape from the mental hospital, and on the way come across another sarcophagus from which someone is trying to get out, hinting to us that the main character has another personality that he does not know about. While trying to find a way out of the mental hospital, the main characters meet a human-like hippopotamus who introduces herself as the goddess Taweret. She tells them that they are dead and are in the Egyptian afterlife, and that the hospital is their interpretation of the afterlife, since mortals cannot truly comprehend it. In reality, they are sailing on a boat through the underground world of Egypt, and by the time they reach their destination, their souls must be balanced. If this happens, they will end up in the field of reeds, something like the Egyptian paradise. But if they don't make it in time, evil spirits will drag them into the sands. The main characters begin to travel through memories that caused imbalance in their souls. Stephen notices a little boy and runs after him, then learns that in the past, Mark and his younger brother Randall were playing in a cave, and Randall died, drowning in the water. Their mother began to blame Mark for her son's death, constantly drinking and beating him. It was at this moment that Mark created his second personality, Stephen. It turns out that Stephen, who had always considered himself the main personality, was just a figment of Mark's imagination. We also learn that their mother died a long time ago. Soon, Taweret says that in the real world, someone is sending people's souls here directly, and the main characters realize that it is Harrow. They ask the goddess to help them return, and she agrees to help. But because the souls of the main characters are not in balance, evil spirits attack the boat and drag Stephen into the sand where he freezes. At this moment, the scales finally stop, and Mark finds himself in the field of reeds. Meanwhile, we are shown what is happening in the real world. Harrow takes the Amit statue from the dead body of the main character and heads for the pyramids, as that is where he will be able to free the goddess from her imprisonment. Layla wants to stop the villain and pretends to be his follower, following him. Harrow opens a passage into the pyramid and finds himself in a room where the Council of Gods had previously met. With the help of his cane, he defeats the remaining avatars and resurrects Amit, who appears in the form of a humanoid crocodile. The goddess then informs Harrow that he is suitable for the role of her avatar. At this time, Layla is contacted by Taweret, that very same hippopotamus, who tells her how to free Khonshu, which she does. After that, the god notices that he does not feel Mark's presence in this world. Khonshu tries to resist Amit, but without an avatar, he can do nothing. Meanwhile, Mark abandons paradise and follows Stephen into the desert, unable to leave him alone. Suddenly, the gates of the afterlife open, and the main characters return to their bodies, which, I remind you, are dead. However, at that moment, Khonshu, who is fighting Amit, senses that Mark has returned, teleports to him, and uses the suit to heal his wounds. He then promises to free Mark and Stephen from their service if they help him defeat Amit. Mark flies on the wings of his suit to the pyramids, where Layla becomes the temporary avatar of Taweret. While the giant Khonshu battles the giant Amit, who devours human souls, Mark, Stephen, and Layla fight Harrow. Despite their efforts, the main characters are defeated, and Mark suddenly loses consciousness. When he regains consciousness, he finds himself surrounded by complete destruction, having defeated all of his enemies. However, neither Mark nor Stephen remember how they did it. Then the avatars of the gods seal Amit back in, and Khonshu demands that Mark kill Harrow, but he refuses because it was not part of the agreement. After that, the god relieves the main characters of their duty to serve him. In the post-credits scene, we see how, after some time, an unknown person takes Harrow out of the mental hospital and puts him in a limousine where Khonshu is sitting. The man says that the god cannot harm him without the avatar. However, Khonshu introduces him to Mark's third personality, Jake Lockley, whom he has not yet released under the terms of the contract. Jake then kills Harrow. This is the end of the first season. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click the like button. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.